Welcome to the Backyard Bounty Podcast from heritageacresmarket.com, where we talk about all things backyard poultry, beekeeping, gardening, sustainable living, and more. And now, here's your host, Nicole.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Backyard Bounty. I'm your host, Nicole, and today we're joined by Justin and Rebekah Rhodes of Abundant Permaculture, and today we are going to talk about permaculture. So thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Oh, yes, thank you so much.
So I know that you guys have an interesting background in how you got into the permaculture farmstead life that you are now. Would you mind sharing a little bit of your backstory with us?
So I think that we grew up like most everybody else and eating like most everybody else. I lived in the country. Rebekah lived in suburbia. So we kind of have, down in Florida. I live in North Carolina. So sure, I lived in the country, but we weren't necessarily doing what we're doing now. Our parents weren't homesteading or anything like that, which is what we're doing now. But I would say that Rebekah at some point started getting excited or convicted about our health and what we were eating. It seemed like at one point she was telling me, well, we can't drink this milk anymore. We got to drink organic milk.
Yeah.
And so it started with organics. We ran out of our conventional milk and we bought some organic milk and kind of ended up doing that with all our things. And then the cheapwad that I was said, wait a minute. We were living in the country, thankfully, on family land. Basically, it came down to, whoa, this is really expensive eating healthy, but this is good. And you can buy a bunch of kale at the store for $3.50, or you can buy a seed pack of kale at the store for $3.50 and get 1,000 times the amount of kale. So we're like, all right, let's start growing some of our food. And long story short, 12-year journey of blood, sweat, and tears, and some kicks and giggles. We're here and now are sitting with 10 fridges, freezers full of our own homegrown meat and veggies.
That's amazing. And where are you guys doing all of this at? Where in the country are you?
Near Asheville, North Carolina.
There in North Carolina, what is the climate like? Like here in Colorado, we've got, well, pretty much anymore, we just have summer and winter. So that really makes some challenges. Is your weather there a little bit more temperate?
Yes, we are a cold, temperate climate. We have traveled all of America, and once we went west, we really began to miss the magic that water just falls from the sky. So, we get rain, but here in Western North Carolina, we also get 4 seasons. And so now that we've been to all states, we really can compare and see and really have come to appreciate what we have here. It doesn't get too hot. It doesn't get too cold. Like today, it's beginning of February, and it's like 30 this morning.
Yeah, we definitely have a temperature fluctuation. But we're not too cold, which is nice. I mean, we have cold snaps where it gets real cold.
And we get some snow, so we get to enjoy some snow.
Yeah, we get a little bit of this.
But it's not like, no way is it here all winter long.
No, it's very nice.
That sounds perfect. Here in Colorado, we had a somewhat unexpected snowstorm, and we've probably gotten about a foot or so, and the schools and the banks and everything were closed today. And so, it's Colorado. It does whatever it wants.
That's fun. If that happened here, they would call it the blizzard of 2020.
Oh, I know. It would be a blizzard if we got a foot. And it would be
goodness.
I mean, we would be shut down. Let's see. So I moved here with my family in 1996. Mm-hmm. And we had a very nice snowfall in early of 97. And we were out of school for like 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't have school. I mean, Justin and I think we were dating then, and we were out of school and driving around. It was hilarious. It was actually kind of funny because he would come pick me up and bring me out here, and we'd sled and drink, hot cocoa. And
we'd tell your mom, we're snowed in.
I know. And then it'd be like, Mom, I got snowed in. I can't come home. So then I'd spend the night at his dad's house. And yeah, it was just kind of funny because we just were like,
we were driving all around.
I know. We'd go into town. We'd be like, oh, we want to go do this. So we're just going to go. And so, yeah, we shut down big time if there's any sort of snow here.
How funny. Well, I bet it's nice to live somewhere where you can experience all 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So nice.
So your business or your social media being Abundant Permaculture, I feel like the word permaculture is thrown around a lot and it's kind of a hot term right now. But what exactly is permaculture? What does that mean?
Well, I think it might mean different things for different people, but if I were to give you an elevator answer, it would be it's a way of designing things that works with nature rather than against it to give you more abundance with less input. And I say designing things, mostly it is for designing a homestead or urban backyard or a farm. Some of it is life design as well. So a lot of its principles can be applied to life in general.
And as you guys built your permaculture, what are some of the challenges and successes that you've faced along the way?
First of all, the permaculture, so we got into this food growing venture, and like so many things I do, if I get into something, I like it, I try to make a living of it.
And I'm an entrepreneur, into it.
And I go pro. I can't just be a hobbyist. I just got to go pro. So we went pro with market farming.
Well, yeah, so we started market farming.
But then I began to suffer from the symptoms of chronic Lyme disease and had to slow down drastically. And we were farming at that point organically, but having to slow down and having less energy and be in physical pain and bills go up and ability go down. I started to feel in my heart, man, there's got to be a better way. Like I feel like here's my chickens, here's my garden. Shouldn't I have, could it be connected or something? Mm-hmm. What could I do to be more efficient?
I think, too, at that time, because he was dealing with illness and we didn't know what it was, and we were delving deeply into what some would call alternative medicine or holistic medicine, we were kind of like realizing that not everything is separate, that the body all works together. And so, like, why on our farm are we so segmented? Like, why is it the chickens over here and this over here, and why aren't things working together?
Yeah, so that was a major struggle early on, was the physical disability, not being who I once was physically or mentally, and it was driven by my heart because, the mind and body wasn't necessarily keeping up. Knew that there was something different out there, and so when a friend pointed out a permaculture video online, it was a Jeff Lawton Zaytuna farm tour, and I got into that tour, and it was absolutely amazing. It just blew my mind. And ultimately, what happened was one of the permaculture principles that really sunk in and touched me at that time was permaculture, it'll teach you some about gardening. It won't teach you how to raise a chicken. But what permaculture does is make connections. So it doesn't dive deep and specific in any kind of element like a garden or chickens or cows or whatever, but it makes the connection. So permaculture is like the toolbox that the garden and the chickens can sit inside of. So that was one major obstacle that we overcame actually through and because of permaculture.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you mentioned before that we started recording that you use your chickens a lot to kind of help you with some of the tasks that you have around your farm. And I assume that that's kind of one of the components of the permaculture as well.
So I said to you that permaculture rescued us in a sense in being able to make connections. So we had a market garden and it was out there separate. And then we had our chickens over here or wherever, somewhere separate. But then what permaculture taught me was basically, look at your different elements. Let's take a chicken and let's take a garden. So what does a chicken need? Well, a chicken needs food. A chicken needs buddies. A chicken needs water. A chicken needs to move about and scratch. But what does a chicken give? So a chicken gives eggs, a chicken gives meat, a chicken scratches, a chicken gives poop that could be a fertilizer. So we have that. So what does a chicken give and need? And then now let's look at the garden. So the garden, what does it give and need? So the garden needs fertilizer, it needs water, it needs weeding, it needs debugging. What does a garden give? A garden gives food, it could give mulch, it could give some various different things. So all of a sudden we're seeing that a garden needs debugging or needs weeded, needs fertilizer. Well, those are things that a chicken gives. And a garden gives food. Well, that's a thing that a chicken needs. So all of a sudden you see that these two should be connected. And at the very least, your garden and your chickens should be next to each other. So that, and preferably, the garden in between your house and the chickens. So you walk out there, you pick through your garden, pick some weeds, pick some extra produce on your way to the chickens and throw it into the chickens for some food. And your chickens are near the garden, so that's one side at least. I mean, you could put your chickens all around the garden and have complete wall of bug control surrounding your garden, but you'd at least have one side, and you throw your veggies in there and the chickens love it. Theoretically, you could harvest their manure from them, being in the coop all night. Half their manure load is dropped at night, and you could put that in a compost pile nearby, and you pick up the eggs, and on your way back, you could toss the manure into a compost pile while in the other hand, you're carrying eggs inside. So see what I'm saying? Just at least making that connection, putting them next to each other. Now we've gone a step further and we have chickens go ahead of the garden and they till and they fertilize and they therefore get it ready. And then we cover it with a gardening silage tarp. And then we pull that tarp up and we plant. And it's some of the most beautiful soil and beautiful crops you've ever seen.
So it's really like one big symbiotic, everything kind of supports and helps everything else.
Yes.
And so along this journey, I imagine that I'm not going to make any assumptions here, but you might have made a mistake or two along the way. What are some lessons that you've learned from that?
I made so many mistakes.
I know.
And, I make a mistake every day. My goodness. Right now I'm working on putting stuff back where it goes, making a special trip and putting it back where it goes. Right now I'm working on becoming a better listener to my wife.
Oh.
So mucho mistakes every single day.
No.
You don't arrive. But some of the early mistakes, because of lack of knowledge or experience, I would have to say, because your audience is probably going to be more, I've got stories across the board, from pigs to cows to chickens, but let's go with the chickens.
Sure.
Our first chickens. We affectionately call them Uno, Dos, and Tres and Cuatro. We got 4 chickens.
We got these chickens because we had spent some time in Honduras, and we were in charge of chickens while Justin was.
They put me in charge of 1,200 chickens.
Oh my goodness.
Day 2, I knew nothing about farming at this time. Nothing.
Knew nothing
And
about chickens.
here was my mistake. We went to serve there. And maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was good. But I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And I spoke one word of Spanish. I could speak hola. And they said, all right, well, we're going to jump on that because there was only 14 of them and 400 kids.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, among other things, they put me in charge of the chickens. 1,200 of them.
Those were the meat chickens. And then there's also layers that we have to collect eggs.
Oh, my gosh.
So, long story short there is that they put me in charge of this, but they told me exactly what to do.
Yeah, they did.
And I was successful. We got those chickens in Honduras, you butcher the meat chickens that's only 6 weeks old. They like a little bird, a little carcass. And so I got them to 6 weeks. We only lost a few, which is like incredible because you should at least lose like 10%. So I could at least lost 120, but I lost like a handful. So here I am patting myself on the back thinking I'm
Chicken
Mr.
farmer.
Pro, Mr. Chicken Farmer, man. And we come back and we're just talking and somebody came up to us and said, hey, would you guys want some chickens? It's like so crazy because we were just talking about it. And we said yes. And we thought we got this.
I know.
So we got 4 chickens
in Honduras.
We brought them home. Yeah, we call them Uno, Dos, Tres, and Cuatro. So you can tell by that time I've picked up a little more Spanish.
At least a few more.
Yeah.
So it's to remind us of our good times and hard times in Honduras. And we got those chickens. We put them in a stall downstairs. We actually live in a horse barn. There's no horses here, but that's a whole different story. But anyway, we put them in a stall downstairs. It's like your typical barn stall. Mm-hmm. And we just get so excited, and we want people to see them. I don't know if I got you to come see them or whatever, but we opened the top stall door.
Well, no, we only had the bottom stall door open because we didn't account for
was it the bottom too?
We just had the bottom stall door. We had the top one wide open, and we were just like,
So we went down there to see them, and one flew up on top of this door and right out.
I know. We were
and
like,
then 2 flew right out. So nobody told us that chickens can fly a little bit.
And that you need to keep them like really caged in. So this is the thing. In Honduras, you keep your chicken because in Honduras,
well, they were meat chickens too.
They were,
so meat chickens not going to fly.
But they were also the layer chickens were in a house. It was a very open air house, but because in Honduras, the predators are humans, so they have to keep them like locked up. Although it was very open, but it was still very locked up. So we didn't like know that you needed to keep them so like we thought they just kept them locked up because of them getting got by predators. But no, it was because they fly.
So we had that door open. We didn't think chickens could fly, I guess, and two of them flew out that very night. And and that's it too. They had just gotten there. So I know now that, if we would have kept that door shut at least one day, preferably 3, that they would have gotten used to that area and they would just come back at night. Mm-hmm. But because they had just got put in there, they didn't know. They were not established there. And so they didn't come back that night. And I saw one of them on our roof the next day.
Oh my goodness.
And it's reachable from our porch. And so I tried to chase it. And it got away. And at that time too, I didn't know how to chase a chicken. Do you know how to chase a chicken? You can actually chase a chicken. If you want to sprint race a chicken, you're a toast. You're gonna lose.
Yeah.
The 25-yard dash, you lose every time. Usain Bolt got no chance.
Yeah.
But you are an endurance animal. A chicken is not. So if you just keep that chicken in sight, I've learned this since, and you just kind of walk or jog or whatever you do to just keep that chicken in sight, it will eventually tire out, hunker down, and you can grab and pick it up. Typically less than 3 minutes. But
I don't know that's that hard if you just have the skills.
I guess that was our big mistake, is going into it
But we were like,
with maybe some assumptions.
Yeah, and we were like, how hard could this be? It's chickens.
And maybe I should have gotten a book.
Yeah, we should
about backyard chicken keeping or something. And since then we have, and we didn't count on our really nicheified experience in Honduras to pull us through. Our experience in Honduras maybe lit the fire and got us excited about it and got us thinking that we could do chickens. So I guess sort of we got tricked. But I think that's better. I think it's better to get tricked and get into this and lose a couple than to just study and think you got to know everything, because you cannot know everything and not do anything.
Analysis paralysis. Yep.
Right.
That's right. So I think it's better to get 4 chickens and do your best, and lose a couple. I mean, you can get them on Craigslist, sometimes free, because that's a great learning experience, and it could be anything I had in a book. Now, sure, I could have avoided some of that had we just gotten a little backyard
pamphlet, even probably
pamphlet. Or even asked the owner a few questions.
Yeah, I just don't even.
I'm surprised we had a box for them to take home.
I think they gave us the box.
Oh, they probably gave us a box. Hey, do you have anything to take these chickens home with?
And I should add that I was very pregnant with our first child.
Oh my goodness.
I was like less than weeks away.
So you weren't waddling out there helping me chase them down?
No. I remember you came back in. I probably was sitting on the couch or something. You're like, we lost 2, and I was like, what?
We didn't give up. We got more. And Trace and Quattro lived for a little while.
They did. They lived for a long time. They did eventually get got.
Yep. And that can be hard sometimes. There's all kinds of things to think about. And so you can't beat yourself up too much if you lose one or one gets sick or dies strangely, or it does happen. They tell me when you have livestock, you have dead stock, and that's totally true.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Yeah. And the more you get into it and the more success you have, and success being numbers of animals. Like if we have right now 50 chickens, 5 cows, 2 pigs, 7 sheep. I mean, what's the chances of something happening to somebody as if I only had 1 pet dog? So my chances are up. So as you increase and succeed and become abundant, you're also going to experience more loss.
I know that when I only had 6 chickens, I didn't really have too many problems. And then once I started getting 20, 30, 40, 50, I started having these problems crop up. But if you think about it as like purely statistics, if 1 in 10 get sick or whatever, and you only have 6, then that's a half of 1, so the more you have, the numbers stay the same. You're just more likely to experience that stuff, I think, as you grow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you mentioned if you had maybe done a little bit of research, but I feel like you can read something, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to follow the rules that you read, you probably would still end up chasing a chicken on the roof, even if you had read not to chase chickens on the roof.
Yeah, and and there's some things missing like that. Like if a chicken gets on a roof, don't get on it. Like there are some rules missing.
Yes. But that being said, do you have any resources that you like to recommend to people?
One of our early books, because we have some grassland here, was Joel Salatin's Salad Bar Beef, which talked about how to raise cows. Then we got his book, Pastured Poultry Profits. We got Harvey Usry's book, Small Scale Poultry Flock, which is a wonderful book for getting started with chickens and doing some amazing things with chickens. If I could only have one book and you were going to erase all my experience and knowledge and start me over somewhere else, but I could take one book of Intro to Permaculture with Bill Mollison. One of our first adventures with getting a cow for raising it for beef was you buy the steer in the spring. Steer is a castrated male. He's not going to be interested in mating. He's not going to want to run off and stuff. So you buy them in the spring when grass is heavy, and then you harvest. They're 1 year old, and then you harvest them at the end of that growing season. So you don't have to worry about hay. It's a good way to get into that. So, and I went off of Joel Salatin's book. Well, his book didn't tell me not to just get one cow. Okay? So if you get one cow, I learned the hard way, well, it's not terribly happy and may want to break out.
Oh.
And I knew enough to get a steer. My mentor had told me that or whatnot. But when the guy who I bought the steer from actually showed up with a heifer, which is a female cow that has just not become a mom yet, I said to my friend, is it okay? Can I just grow a heifer from spring to fall? And he said, yeah. And it is okay. It happens all the time. You could do male or female. It doesn't really matter. But Joel Salatin's book didn't tell me, make sure you get more than one cow. And make sure if you do only get one cow, that it's a steer. Because if you only get one cow, that heifer is going to come in what you call a heat her cycle every 3 weeks. And she's going to be antsy. And she's going to bust the fence and you're going to lose her for 3 weeks.
Oh, no.
And you've done sold her. And you're going to have to deliver her, but she's gone. You've already sold her as hamburger and steaks and whatnot.
Yes.
Like I was telling you, there are some gaps in books. So really, after 10, 12 years, the ultimate problem in homesteading is that you are lonely. You're inept because grandpa and grandma didn't pass this down to mom and dad. And sure, you have Mr. Google Pants, and you can ask him all kinds of things, but he's going to give you all kinds of crazy thousands of crazy answers.
Yeah.
Which one can you trust, and how can you fill in the gaps? So, after our experience, we began to document this, much like you do a podcast. We started creating content, just making fun YouTube videos about what we were doing, and then we're like, there's a gap here. So really what we did is we created an online community where folks can, through the YouTube videos, get in there and kind of build community and get help through each other. And we created a member area where folks can come in and get into a Facebook group and do that. And then I actually made myself available to them in that, like via direct text. So I kind of wish Joel Salatin was my uncle, and wouldn't that be cool? And
yes.
For those that don't know, Joel Salatin is like somebody who's been doing this kind of farming for 60, his whole life, 60 years. And he would know a lot. And wouldn't it be cool if you could just call up an uncle and say, hey, you know what? This one cow is trancing back and forth every 3 weeks. What's going on? Oh, she's in heat. You better get a partner.
Yeah.
And so now I've made that because it didn't exist. There's great books. There's great videos. We came in creating more videos, and videos are more powerful in some ways because you can show the action. So we created Permaculture Chickens, which is a movie on how to raise chickens from hatching to the plate. And then we created one with Permaculture Pigs. And then we have a member area where folks can get direct help and help from each other. So,
yeah, that would definitely be a great resource. I know that we can't expand our little homestead where we're at now, but if we are able to move in the future, I really want to get things like goats and horses and a couple cattle. And I mean, it probably sounds funny to some people, but I don't know how to take care of a horse. Like lots of people have horses. I don't know how to do it. So I would definitely, need that sort of resource to help me along the way because I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah. So you could start old school and go find you a book at the library but even now online, there's courses and stuff. And Probably some of it's even better to find a local horse trainer or something like that too. That's a good example.
Thanks. So what would you say are some of maybe, I don't know, 5? If that sounds like a good number. What are like 5 tips that you would offer beginners that are just getting started in this permaculture adventure?
Number 1, they need to figure out what they want. So they have to have goals. I tell my kids, you got to have goals. You got to know what you want, and you got to sit down, and that is maybe the fun part. Think about what you want. And a lot of people, like you just said, you want horses. You said maybe some cows, some goats. I imagine you probably want some gardens. Maybe you don't. Maybe that's all you want. So you think about, you probably want bees. You told me you've interviewed a lot of beekeepers. So lay it all out there. And you're going to probably, if you've gotten the bug and you're excited about this, you're probably going to have way too much. But just have fun with it. Write down all your goals of what you want. And then your second thing would be then you've named everything you want, but then figure out your priorities. So for Rebekah and I, it's pretty easy. So we wanted to grow a lot of our own food, but it was, when we first got into it, it was for saving money. So we said, what are we spending the most money on? And since we were buying organic meats, well, one, you can't find a lot of organic meats. And if you could, they were expensive.
You couldn't back when we tried to do this.
So we said,
now it's much more readily available.
We need to start growing a lot of our own meat. So that would then give us an idea of maybe what we would prioritize. So that's kind of our second step. So you've identified all your goals and wants and wishes in the first step. And then 2, you want to then begin to prioritize based on what you're actually looking to do. Is it to save money? Is it for health? Is it for beauty? Is it for, some people get into this for fun? So you have to look at why you're doing it, and then you're going to begin to have to prioritize. And people ask us, well, when are you going to get turkeys? Well, it's going to be next year. When are you going to get bees? I don't know. We're looking on it, thinking about it, and hoping on it. But our priorities had to get meat in our freezer because we just couldn't buy it. And if we're looking for growing our own healthy food, I know bees are great for many other things, and I'm not discounting them, and we're on our way to get them. But if our priority is to grow clean food for ourselves and we're buying a lot of meat, then we need to prioritize growing of the meat, and then we start trickling down that path. So that would be number 2. So then you've figured that out. Now you got to learn a little bit. And I say a little bit because don't get caught up in learning everything, because you can't. I'm the apron-wearing permaculture chicken ninja master, and I don't know everything there is to know about a chicken.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's okay. You learn a little bit. You learn, what does a chicken need? Oh, it needs some food. Well, where can I get some food? Well, I don't know. Well, ask Mr. Google Pants. You can find some food. And then if you want to go deep into it, then you start thinking about, well, can I afford chickens right now? This is the amount of food they're going to need, blah, blah, blah. If you need to go into that budgeting thing. Rebekah and I were always like, go for it. We'll find a way.
Yeah.
So then what would be a couple others, Rebekah? That's 3.
Finding the type of stock you want. You actually listened to your podcast with the Alchemist Farm for a hatchery, and it really intrigued me that, so I went and checked out their website. But like, there's lots of different, you can buy from like a typical hatchery, or buy from like the Alchemist Farm, or there might be, there's Tractor Supply, they have chicks if that's what you're getting. But like for us, like we got lambs and we just got them from a local place, but what we failed to realize was that way that gentleman raised his lambs was not the way we would raise them. And so we took them from that very conventional system and put them into our holistic system, and it didn't work.
Expected them to thrive. So
that's it. I think like you would need to figure out how you're going to raise them, and then
So that would be the study. That would be the study. So then I think you actually do.
Yeah. Well,
so
that
step
would be
number 4 would be like, actually do it. Like what you're saying. Go and get some lambs.
Yeah.
Go and get some chickens. Your first chickens are probably going to be from conventional hatchery, or you've listened to this podcast and you're going to go to the Alchemist Farm.
Yeah.
So that's your action. You go and do that, and then you learn. So then the 5th step would be the reworking, to rework and redo the plan. One thing I learned when I was getting my permaculture design certificate from Jeff Lawton in Australia, is he said it's easier to make a plan on paper than in real life. So you make your plan, and guys, this could be in your head. Just make some sort of plan, go out there and do, and then you're going to hit some obstacles. You're going to find ways to make it better, or you're going to find that this isn't working out at all. Like for Rebekah and I, we got these conventional sheep, and we expected them to thrive in this natural environment without any dewormers, and it didn't work. And so what did we do? Rebekah and I said, okay, that didn't work. What are we going to do?
We tried our hardest.
We reworked.
Didn't work
we tried
out.
not to beat ourselves up too bad, even if it meant an animal died.
Yeah.
And it hurt, and it was hard. But then we said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get these sheep from another farmer who would have raised them even more natural, or at least the same as we will. And it meant a year-long waiting list. So it was like a year and a half before we got sheep again.
We contacted him in August, and it was the next August. Well, we thought we were going to have to wait like 3 years. He thought we wanted more sheep, but we wanted such a small number. He was like, yeah, I can do that next year. So we waited a whole year and got our sheep, and they are thriving on our system.
Yeah. But, every day we go through this a little bit. We have our goals for the day, and we have to prioritize the day because you can't do everything in one day. And then we study if we need to. Like just the other day, I didn't know how much I had bare ground from where the pigs turned in our garden. We're going to turn it into pasture. And I didn't know how much seed to cover that amount of area. So I had to come in and do a little bit of study and figure out that I plant 0.005 pounds per square foot, and figured out that I needed 2 pounds to cover this 5,000 square feet. And so I went out there and broadcasted it, covered it with hay, and we're good. And you just do that every day in little ways. But you probably want to do it in a big way when you're getting animals or starting a garden or going out this whole homestead thing.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely no shortage of things to learn, even if you don't add anything to your homestead or anything. Even if all you had was a garden, there's always something to learn.
My goodness, yes.
Yeah.
So I know that you guys have a really great social media. I've been following you on Instagram and YouTube, but where else can people follow your journey and get that information from you?
The best way is thejustinrhodesshow.com, and that will actually take you to our YouTube page, which we put up a new video every day of the week, every weekday. So every weekday you get a new video that is going to inspire and encourage you and teach you how to begin growing your own food. And a lot of our followers don't grow anything, and many of them have over half of them have less than a half an acre, and some of them are more broad scale, and some of them just come to laugh and get kicks and giggles from watching the kids have some fun. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the best way, thejustinrhodesshow.com, but that's also my handle on Instagram at The Justin Rhodes Show, and Rebekah's at Rebekah, spelled with a K-A-H Rhodes. And those are the best ways, Instagram and YouTube.
Awesome.
And we have a website, abundantpermaculture.com, with all kinds of chicken articles and all kinds of free resources on raising chickens from hatching to the plate.
Yeah, chickens are, as listeners I'm sure know, chickens are definitely one of my favorites. So
thank you for
check that out. There's a lot of great resources on there.
A podcast by heritageacresmarket.com.
Well, Justin and Rebekah, I really appreciate your time.
Don't forget to
Thank you so much for
subscribe
sharing
and leave
your
us a
stories and
review.
your permaculture tips.
If you have a question you'd like us to
Thank you
answer
for
on the
having us
show,
And for
please
those of
email
you
us
listening,
at
thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again
heritageacresmarket.com.
next week.
Also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Heritage Acres Market. All the links mentioned in this podcast will be included in the description. See you again next week.